Welcome once again to Maleta y Pasaporte. My name is Luis, and today we will be doing two things. First, we will be recording the whole video in English. Why? Because why not? I want you to keep practicing your listening and start getting familiarized with other people's English. Myself, for example, I have a thick Spanish accent. Sometimes I conjugate the verbs in a wrong way. Sometimes I cannot find the right words to express myself. But that doesn't stop me to do the things I do. And secondly, we have a special guest who has accepted to be here today in Maleta y Pasaporte. He's a young self-made millionaire whose family is also an immigrant. And today he will be sharing a little bit of what he does. So let's begin.
Try to erase you, that's just a waste of time.
Today we have a very special guest with us. 4 things that you need to know about him. First, he is very fond of real estate and teaching / coaching. Second, he is an immigrant as well, second generation, similar than many of us that arrived to this country, myself, maybe you or yourself in the future if you are watching this video. Third, he is a self-made millionaire. He owns many properties in this city, in Winnipeg. And number 4, personally, I think he's a very good example that is allowed to have big dreams. Is allowed to have big goals as long as you have a plan attached to this goal, as long as you are willing to put hard work on this plan, and as long as you have discipline and commitment. Okay? Too much blah, blah, blah. Let's start this. Welcome, Patrick, to Maleta y Pasaporte.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about how was your journey to Canada?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my parents arrived in Canada first, right? So like my mom studied here to be a CPA, an accountant. After that, she moved back to the Philippines, less than a year, married my dad, and then they came back here in Winnipeg, Canada. I was born here about a year after, and they always joked around like, oh, like you were made in the Philippines, but you were born here. And I didn't really understood what that meant until after, like learning grade 6 science. And then I talked to my parents about it. And I was like, were you like pregnant when you went on the plane to come here, to immigrate here? My mom's like, yeah. I was like, didn't you have to like declare that you're pregnant? She's like, you're maybe supposed to, but like, yeah, you were still small. So like no one had to know. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. So luckily, yeah, I was born here and then have all the opportunities of being like, yeah, second generation here in Canada.
Okay, perfect, Patrick. How many languages do you speak?
It's a good question. So first language is Tagalog. And the story behind that is like my parents are from the Philippines, right? And they had a rule. Until I turned 18, so from birth until 18, we would only speak Tagalog at home. Oh. Like no English at home. Yeah. And their reasoning was, you're going to learn English anyway. Like if I just go outside, I play with my friends, go to school, I'm going to learn English. And then they also thought that it'd be a good idea to put me in French immersion. Yeah. So Tagalog was my first language from home. English was the language I learned, like, culturally, just being here in Canada. And then French I learned through academics, like through school. So fluent in English, Tagalog, and then French.
Okay, perfect. Cool to know. Do you know that Tagalog and Spanish have some similarities?
Yeah, super similar, right? Yeah. I know our numbers I think our numbers are the same.
Yeah. And also, how do you say, how are you?
Yeah, ¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo estás?
Yeah, exactly.
And pants or
pantalon.
Pantalon, exactly the same, and that's so funny.
French too is similar to it's all Latin languages, right?
They're all related. Yeah. Okay, Patrick. You that have seen other immigrants and your parents also, they are immigrants, and you are a second generation immigrant. Do you have any tip or any advice that would you give to someone that is outside of Canada and is planning to come here?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm gonna kind of frame it around like finances and being financially literate, just because like that's kind of what I specialize in with the coaching and the real estate. But if someone's planning to move here in Canada, depending on like where you come from, like you're probably coming from a like capitalist society at least. Maybe you come from communism, but it might be a little bit different from that case. But really being able to understand like your basics of financial literacy. Like, hey, when you come here, things do cost a certain amount of money. And that's kind of one of the complaints I see people make sometimes. Like they'll come here and they think it's going to be super easy. Yeah. But it's not. It is hard, but it does offer opportunity. Yeah. So if you can get through the initial difficult part and then learn the basics of like, hey, like how much income do you need a month? How much do you need to spend a month? What is the amount of assets that you need to get the retirement, because people want to have a retirement. You don't want to just come here and work forever, right?
Sure.
You do want to kind of enjoy the opportunities that come here, and then being able to understand debt as well. So if you understand those like 4 terms of like income, expenses, assets, and liabilities, and just be able to create your own financial statement, you can make that before coming here. At least you'll have an idea so that you're not just lost, right? Because I think immigrants do have an advantage there because they know what living is elsewhere. So when they come here, they're a little bit more grateful for it. Whereas I know like friends that are just born here and they don't really see the opportunity. They just see it as like, oh, I have to work and then spend it and work forever. Well, maybe, but if you make a plan, and you have somewhere you're going, again, like you said, like dream big, like you don't just have to abide by society's rules. I think you can go very far. And usually immigrants have that, like that chip on their shoulder, like the mentality that they want to go further because now it's like, hey, I have the opportunity, like I'm here. And I didn't even realize that till I visited Philippines, or even like I visited Southeast Asia this fall. Like we visited Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. And then just seeing the work ethic people had, and they would only make, $5 a day. Whereas if you took that same person that just like talked to everyone, tried to sell to everyone, really pushed their marketing, like you would go far here. Like you'll definitely make more than $5 a day here.
I think that's a very important advice. The more prepared that you are and the more financially literacy that you have, the better outcome you will have here as an immigrant for sure. Perfect. Patrick, and jumping a little bit more about the real estate side of things, how much, if you don't mind me asking, how much do you own in real estate, or how many properties do you have in the city?
Yeah, it's a good question. Totally open with this. I always like to push transparency. So I own, personally, we're at 14 units. And then recently I've had to move things into a corporation. I still own the corporation, but just to continue getting financing. And I have 3 units in that corporation.
Okay, that's a lot. Perfect. What strategies do you use in your real estate, or which strategies have you used to get all these properties?
Yeah, awesome. So that's a good question. So I specialize in the BRRRR strategy. It stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And the reason I like that strategy was because it teaches you all the other strategies of real estate indirectly, right? If you use the BRRRR strategy, it becomes a buy and hold at the end. If I use the BRRRR strategy and instead of refinancing, I sell, it's like a flip. Wholesaling allows me to find deals, and whether I decide to wholesale or find public leads, it still works with the BRRRR strategy. And then if I want to do a rental, I could just add that into the BRRRR strategy. So that's kind of how I started. And then I've done a few flips, a couple wholesales, sometimes some buy and hold. But I like the BRRRR strategy because you can keep reusing the same down payment. Right? Like,
repeating.
Yeah, exactly. Only on the first deal, so the house we're staying in right now, like this is where I live, this is the only one where I use my own money. Everything else, I like found money partners, raised capital, and then used none of my own money.
Okay.
It's one of the ways you could go fast and scale without having to, make a boatload of money. Because I was just working as a regular teacher before, right? So.
Okay, wow. As you can see, this guy is a Bible in real estate. A lot of knowledge, a lot of skills. Patrick, would you be able to show us a little bit one of your properties so we can see exactly what you do and the works that you've done?
Yeah, totally. So we can, here, like where I started, I actually bought properties near where I live at first. Because that was kind of my intention of like, hey, I want to be close to my rentals, especially in the beginning, because like I wasn't really too sure how everything was going to work. So that's how I started. So examples like this house. So I grew up in the house next door. So we're actually on the corner of the street. Next door is where my parents bought their first place. And what ended up happening was I was learning real estate, going to all the seminars, reading all the books, and then I learned how to do a private deal. I didn't do one yet, but I learned how to do it. And then one night I walk home, and then this house that we're in right now was my neighbor's house before. And all of a sudden I saw that she passed away. Like there's an ambulance outside. This is when I'm learning real estate. So like one of the things they talk about is like you talk to everyone and you just try to get information. So like I talked to the ambulance, I'm like, hey, is everything okay? And they're like, oh, like your neighbor passed away. I'm like, oh, so sorry to hear that. And literally the next day, I see this Chinese lady and she's walking around the house. And then she pulls out a measuring tape. She's measuring all the windows. Couple more people come. They look like contractors. They're like measuring everything. And I'm like, I've seen this at training where they say, if you see this, there's most likely a renovation going on.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in real estate, go talk to them.
Yeah.
And so also I just decided to ask, and I found out she was a real estate investor from Vancouver. They had like developed Lindenwoods here before.
Okay.
They moved, and long story short, she was here visiting because they bought the place, and this is where she likes to invest her play money, is what she called it.
Oh, play money.
And then I was like, what do you mean play money? It's like, oh, well, you know, this house, if you were to buy it in Vancouver, it's like 1.5, 1.7 million. We buy it for, you know, 10% of that, if not less. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I said, hey, what's your plan? She's like, oh, we don't know if we're going to flip it or sell it. Or keep it as a rental. I said, okay, well, let me know. I'm interested. Like, I'm just learning real estate. Is it okay if I take your phone number and then just ask you questions? So we basically built a relationship over the summer, and I was writing offers every week. I had one duplex that it fell through. I come home, and then the lady knocks on my door. She's like, hey, do you want to buy this house? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'd be interested if it makes sense for everyone. Yeah. Can we do a private deal? Because I know you're a professional investor. I'm still learning. Yeah. I know this saves everyone money. Yeah. And I'm putting a lot of trust in you because I haven't done this yet. Yeah. And I was like, just honest. I don't know if I should have done that, but she seemed nice. So I was like, I'll just be honest. Okay. So we met here, filled out all the paperwork, and then that's how I was able to do my first deal. It was private. Okay. So we bought the house for $262,000. I spent a little bit more because I did a 5% down. Okay. It got appraised, so this was already fully renovated. Didn't have to do any renovations. It got appraised the day I bought it for $272,000. So we made $10,000 buying this house. Okay. So it was a good deal underneath market value. And then what I did was a house hack. So because it was a private deal, I talked to them like, hey, I plan on renting this out. Can you like put a lockbox and I'll have a key so I can go in anytime? They're like, yeah, you live next door. Like, you seem like an honest guy. Like, why not? Yeah. So before possession date, I was already showing the house. Yeah. I'd get some friends. 2 people wanted to be my roommates. Awesome. So on day 1, when I took possession, I already had tenants. Okay, that's great. So it was like, there was no money that I really had to put into renting it out. Okay. I had to put in my down payment. It was 5%. I think I put in, it was like $14,000. It was my life savings at the time. Yeah, yeah. And then, like I started off as you're kind of a landlord when you're house hacking. Yeah. I was only making like $50 a month. Some months, sometimes I break even. Yeah. But it got my foot in the door of being a landlord. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how old were you when this happened? When you bought this house? I was 23, turning 24. 24 years old and already buying his first house. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Another question. What is a private sale and what is house hacking? Got it. Yeah. So private deal or private sale is, it's direct with the owner and then the buyer. So there's no realtor involved. Okay. Little bit more negotiating that you have to do because your realtor is not negotiating for you. Okay. But you can save on the realtor fees. Oh, right? You don't pay a commission. You don't pay a commission. Okay. Exactly. And then house hacking it's a real estate strategy where you live in one room and then you rent out the other rooms. And this allows you to use a 5% down, like your first time home buyers. Yeah. Because, you put 5% down, usually you can't rent out the house because it has your primary residence. Yeah. But if you live in it and you rent out the other rooms, you can still generate some of an income. Yeah. You won't cash flow, $200 or anything. Yeah. But you get practice in being a landlord. Of course. Right? Yeah. Okay. And it will help with the mortgage and all the payments, taxes. Okay, Patrick. Can we see other? Yeah. Let's go outside and check it out. Let's go. Awesome. Okay, Patrick, where are we now? Yeah, so this is where I grew up, and my parents bought this house. It was, I believe, 1999, and they got it for around $64,000. They actually did what's called a vendor take-back. All that means is the seller passed on the mortgage to them. So it's kind of like a creative deal. And yeah, I grew up here, and eventually I bought the house next door. And like I was saying earlier, this is the first private deal that I did. What ended up happening is after getting about 10 rental properties, my parents started seeing like, oh, like this rental business actually seems to work. Like they weren't really too sold on it. They're like, oh, like you're borrowing all this money is kind of crazy. Yeah. But they started seeing that, hey, I had more free time, started making more than my actual job. And what ended up happening is like, hey, like, we had those lockdowns. I was like, I'm home anyway. My roommates have moved out. why don't you guys move in with me? We can still be together. Like, you live next door anyway, like you're visiting all the time, and let's rent out your place. Okay. So technically I still house hack. Like, my parents still stay with me whenever they're in town. Yeah. And then this house is now a full-on rental for them. Okay. Yeah. Great. But let's keep going to, there's a couple more houses down the street that we'll be showing you guys.
Sounds great.
Cool. So we're at another one of our deals here on the same street where I live on. And this one is probably one of my better deals, in that we bought the house for $120,000, renovated just under $20,000. I think I spent $19,480. And so we're in the deal for around $148,000. But when I got it appraised, because we were using the BRRRR strategy, it got appraised at $223,000. Wow. So after the refinance, we pulled out just over $30,000 tax-free. Wow. And then after this deal, this actually helped us start doing multiple deals at the same time. Yeah. Before, I was only doing one deal, finish, get my down payment rental money back, into the next deal. After this, because we pulled out the 30, I had my down payment and renovation money that I was always using, plus I have a new 30,000. So then we started doing 2 deals at the same time. So I'll start showing you guys one of the double deals that we did at the same time.
How much do you expect, or what is your criteria in cash flow per property? Do you have a minimum?
Yeah, I try to aim for around $200, $250 per rental. Okay. Now, this one was a little bit different because I did pull out the 30,000. So I only cash flow about like $89 on this house after maintenance and paying out the property management. That being said, even if I was to cash flow 200 in a whole year, that's 2,400. Well, how long is it going to take me to pull out 30,000 tax-free? Yeah. So that's why I kind of looked at it as like, hey, I can pull out the money, have it now. That allows me to use and have the time compound instead of, waiting like, what is it, like maybe 12 years of cash flow? Yeah. And then I would still get taxed on that. So,
yeah. Okay, sounds great. Let's keep checking more.
Check out some more.
Okay, Patrick, where are we?
So this is another one of our rentals. This was another BRRRR that we did. And like I said, from the other house, we started doing multiple deals. So we did this property along at the same time as the next one we'll show you. But this one we bought, this is when we had bidding wars. So what ended up happening was this house goes on market, 15 minutes on market, I see it, and that there's no offers date. So offers date means that, hey, everyone has to wait till that date to submit their intention to buy the house, to put the offer in. This one didn't have that. And I knew, because I've been looking at homes the whole time, that, hey, this house is a little bit undervalued. I said, hey, I don't even want to look at the house. Let's just put an offer in. Let's put a condition that says, hey, subject to satisfactory inspection, so that I can still look at it, but I want to tie it up first. I want no one else to be able to see it. So I put an offer in, got accepted, house looked great, and we bought the house for $252,000. Okay. We did very quick rentals. Like, all I did was paint the trims of the windows because they were looking a little old, and then we put a bedroom in the basement. So it cost just under $8,000. I think I spent $7,948. And so now we're in at the deal around $260. Got it reappraised, and it appraised at $315,000. So we were able to pull out most of our money, I think if not all of our money. And this is where I started using a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, instead of a full-on refinance. Maybe we'll do a video on that in the future, but just a different way of being able to extract the equity out. This was when I started feeling a little bit stressed, because I was still kind of doing some of the deals on my own. But once you're doing 2 deals at the same time, or multiple at the same time, that's when I really had to take a step back and start just giving the work to the team. Okay. But this one now cash flows $198 after management fees. And then what ended up happening was I had tenants move out. I wanted to try Airbnb. So I furnished it, I Airbnb'd it for about 2 months, made about $5,000, and then kind of realized like, oh, this is pretty active. I don't necessarily like this strategy. I like to be a little bit more passive, have my free time. So I just turned it into a furnished rental. So now it's, again, just a regular rental, comes with the furnishings, and then cash flows a little bit more. See, let's go check out the next one. So now we're at the last property near this area. So we're in the west end of Winnipeg, and this is the other house that we were doing same time as we were renovating the previous home we were looking at. This one we picked up for if I remember properly, $205,000. Renovations that we put in were just under 20. I think I spent 17,560, and then so we're in at the deal for around 230,000. And once we got it appraised, we got appraised at 305,000.
Okay.
So wasn't too bad. I think the price has dropped a little bit because we have seen some declines in price. And then yeah, this one basically rented out for $1,600. I give the tenant a little bit of a discount for paying rent early because they like to pay in advance.
Yeah.
So that's always nice. And then this cash flows just under 250. I think it's like $237 a month. Yeah, this is one of my nicer homes in that it didn't need that much work. Like we did a new kitchen, painted the inside, we painted the outside as well. My painter had some extra paint. You can see here that might have to do the eaves a little bit. There's a little bit of ice there, so that's not good. But a little bit of spring maintenance that we'll be doing as well. So even if we put in money up front, you always got to remember that you still have to maintain your house, because this isn't a get rich quick business model. It's actually a get rich very slow business model. Something that really speeds it up is going to be the creative financing. You got to see a couple homes, got to see a couple of the rentals here, and I love this area. I grew up here, so it makes it a lot easier for me to pick what streets I really like, what areas I like, what type of homes make sense. And that's where I really suggest people start. Like, you don't have to look all over the city, right? You just got to pick 1 to 3 markets that make sense for you. I like the West End. I like near my area, in, like where I was working as a teacher in Miles Mac area, and even like some nice areas like Sinclair Park of closer to the North End there. It's still North End in Winnipeg, but it's a little bit nicer, a little bit safer, let's say. And once you master a couple areas, then you can kind of take that market research, then you can kind of apply to different places. So now I'm looking in a little bit of Alberta, a little bit of Edmonton, because now we know the process of looking at these deals. But at first, I see a lot of new investors try to just like analyze everything, right? You don't have to become a specialist in a certain area. Once you get that, then it becomes a lot easier that you'll know what is a good deal, what is a bad deal. Because if you buy too high, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot and it becomes very difficult. But if you buy at the right price and then it makes sense, it makes all the rest of the future deals a little bit easier for you. If you guys ever need help, let me know. I think you can contact me on Instagram. That'll be at Patrick J Hilario. So J, just the letter, and then Hilario. And you can also reach me on Twitter there. And anytime you need help, we always do free strategy sessions. So I like to always do these calls first because I don't know if I can help you or not based on your goals for real estate. After I ask a couple of questions, build you a little bit of a profile, what I do is I build you a customized real estate roadmap, because everyone is a different situation, whether you're a full-time entrepreneur, whether you're working a 9 to 5, even if you're a student. I've helped all these different types of people, different levels of income, close deals. And it really just depends on, okay, what's your situation? What's the plan we got to put in place? And then how can we give you steps the first 30 days, 60 days, and then 90 days to help you close a deal that's really going to help you move towards your future goals.
That sounds great, Patrick. Thank you so much for having us today, for sharing all this knowledge that you have acquired during all these years. And yeah, you know now, guys, that's the guy right there. Patrick, subscribe, like. See you next time.
Hey, take care. Thanks for having me.